This session is with the Ingram Micro team, and the name of the session is Business Unusual. Our first presenter is Jason Langley. He's the Managing Director of Ingram Micro New Zealand. Jason has had 29 years in IT, working in the SAP ecosystem, a bunch of clever startups, and Hewlett-Packard New Zealand. He joined Ingram Micro in 2013 and assumed the position of the Managing Director in January of this year. I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Thanks for the introduction, Sean, and thank you for spearheading the IT Reboot Initiative, which is a tremendous vehicle to help reinvigorate New Zealand's IT community. It's been my privilege and honour and good fortune to be in the top job supporting an amazingly talented and dedicated team of 400 during what's been the most disruptive crisis in modern times. And today, I'd like to share with you three things. Firstly, what do we see going into lockdown? Secondly, what are we seeing now? And thirdly, what do we expect to see for the remainder of 2020? From there, I'll hand over to my teammates who will share with you some of the concepts we think it will take to be successful as our country and economy continues to rebuild throughout the remainder of the year and as we emerge from COVID-19's shadow. If you'd like to ask any questions, submit them through Zoom's Q&A feature, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen. We'll respond to Q&A at the end of the session. So beginning with a recap of what we saw going into lockdown. Heading into lockdown, we saw that supply chains had suffered and hadn't yet recovered. This began with Chinese New Year and was then compounded by extended factory closure as COVID-19 took hold in China and Southeast Asia, where most of this region's IT equipment is manufactured. Supply routes were challenged, many factories remained closed or operating at limited capacity. Chinese ports were incredibly congested in a state of near gridlock. This was further compounded by the dramatic reduction in passenger jets, which account for a large percentage of air freight coming into New Zealand. With external supply constraints, in-country stock was king. Those who had prioritised freight into New Zealand, particularly those who had chartered flights, were the beneficiaries of unexpected, unplanned urgent demand as businesses geared up to enable their teams to work from home. On that note, New Zealand saw rapid uptake, bordering on panic purchasing of work from home equipment. Laptops were flying out the door, monitors saw a 42% year-on-year gain, keyboards and mice were in high demand, as was unified communications and collaboration equipment, with headsets growing a staggering 194% over the same period last year. We also saw a spike in sales of work from home enablement equipment, so firewalls to support VPN back to critical infrastructure. Security software sales accelerated too. Then, as the full impact of lockdown hit, and the country was open only to essential services, some sectors ground to an almost complete halt, with retail and consumer accessories bearing the brunt of the essential service mandate. Demand in this category hadn't gone away, however, and I'll touch on that more shortly. But first, what are we seeing now? In terms of trends in market demand, not a huge amount has changed as we've moved from full lockdown at alert level 3 to partial lockdown at alert level 3. Full lockdown alert level 4 to partial lockdown at alert level 3. Customer demand has still favoured work from home products and solutions and across all the categories I mentioned earlier. Part of the reason for this is likely to be that we raced into full lockdown so quickly with just 5 days between alert level 2 and full lockdown alert level 4. Businesses simply weren't prepared. Where we saw an initial surge in demand as businesses raced to enable their teams to work from home, we're now seeing demand come from those who perhaps hadn't considered or understood the full impact of alert levels 4 and 3, and importantly, just how long we might be expected to work from home. Businesses that may have initially thought they'd be able to make do for a short duration are likely to be finding that for the sake of their team's comfort and continued productivity, they need to invest more deeply in work from home solutions now. Interestingly, and somewhat reassuringly, it's not all been about work from home, and many of the country's large IT projects, which have been in the making for many months prior to COVID-19 asserting its dominance on the planet, continued as planned and have been implemented throughout April and May, with forward pipelines remaining healthy. What has changed and become painfully obvious across all industry sectors is the focal point of supply network constraint. Where vendor factories are now back to being fully operational, and where congestion at critical ports in China has now freed up, We've seen import freight prices surge as passenger flights were grounded, leaving every industry competing heavily for available space on cargo flights or the few passenger jets remaining in service. But in what has been an incredibly fluid situation, those constraint points rapidly shifted to New Zealand's own local freight networks, in that our nation's couriers have been overwhelmed by pent-up demand for the past 3 weeks. Feels like longer, but it really has only been 3 weeks, and there's a simple reason for that. During Alert Level 4, only essential goods were able to be shipped. That didn't stop New Zealand's armchair shoppers placing online orders on their favourite retailers. And it seems that a little online retail therapy may have been the best cure for the lockdown blues. And as soon as we hit Alert Level 3, and the essential service mandate lifted, online retailers in all sectors, not just IT, were able to begin shipping once again, and ship they did. Reports from our freight partners indicate unprecedented numbers of parcels being shipped around the country each day, with volumes eclipsing Christmas shipments, the busiest time of the year. The good news is, now that we've arrived at Alert Level 2 and people are able to return to physical bricks and mortar shopping, the country's freight networks are beginning to catch up. Which brings us to what we expect to see for the remainder of the calendar year. If there's one thing that's certain, it's that absolutely nothing is certain at this point. We're all navigating uncharted waters and we're all in the same boat together. While there are many varied and divergent views on what the near-term future looks like and how long the impact of COVID-19 will continue to be felt, local and global analysts and economists appear to agree on a few key topics. Firstly, they're predicting that calendar Q2 will bear the brunt of GDP impact, both globally and here in New Zealand, with forecasts ranging from 10% to 25% down overall during calendar Q2. Those same economists are predicting a steep but incomplete recovery of somewhere between 5 to 10% during the second half, with full year 2020 finishing flat to slightly negative. Most agree, or appear to agree, that we should expect to see a sharp V-shaped recovery. Again, this is reflected both globally and here in New Zealand, although given how well we've done as a team of 5 million in containing and then all but eliminating COVID-19 so far, it's reasonable to expect New Zealand's recovery will start to take hold sooner than most. Finally, and encouragingly for our industry, analysts also agree that while many sectors are likely to feel the impact of COVID-19 for some time to come, others will benefit from the changing economy and from changing work patterns. Most tend to agree that the IT industry will be one of those that benefits over the long haul, as businesses have been forced to recognise the need to continue their digital transformation journey and their race to digitization with renewed urgency and fervour. That's not to say the next 12 months will be easy. As an industry, we will absolutely need to work hard to help our customers maintain focus and to avoid the risk of complacency as the urgency of the COVID-19 crisis subsides. It will remain incumbent on all of us to help those customers transition to a greater state of readiness for future unforeseen events, and also to embrace and equip for the new style of hybrid working that is likely to emerge as the small silver lining to the cloud we've all been living under for the last few months. Continuing the digital transformation journey with greater urgency is something New Zealand's IT channel community can and must help our nation's businesses address. As we continue to emerge from the restrictions we've endured over the last couple of months and move back towards a degree of normalcy, we must not lose the focus we gained as we accelerated towards Alert Level 4 just a few short weeks ago. From an Ingram Micro point of view, while we're certainly far from bullish, we are cautiously optimistic for what the remainder of the year holds. In line with analyst predictions, we're expecting to continue to see steady demand across work from home solutions. Subscription-based software solutions, particularly favouring those with a true scale-up, scale-down licensing model. Hybrid IT, featuring a combination of on-premise and distributed cloud-based solutions as businesses seek to de-risk and guarantee access to critical infrastructure, irrespective of unplanned external influences. And in line with hybrid IT, an increased appetite for managed services and as-a-service style offerings. As cash flow and liquidity constraints are likely to persevere throughout the remainder of the year, we'll share shortly some options that end users and resellers alike may find useful. That'll come up in this session. If your business has suffered through the various alert levels so far, due to absence of demand in your area of specialty, I hope you'll use this session to consider if it makes sense to adjust focus, even temporarily, towards those segments that remain in demand. And I encourage you to speak with your Ingram Micro representatives to gain deeper insights into where we see the market heading. As we continue to move through this particular minefield, change will be constant, and as will the need to be agile and to adapt quickly to the new opportunities presented to us. Today's session is not intended to be a sales exercise for Ingram Micro. It's intended to be an exercise in which we share our uniquely holistic view of New Zealand's IT market to help shine a light on the areas we believe opportunities will exist for the near term. Again, I thank Sean for creating the platform to reboot New Zealand's IT industry, and remind you to submit any questions you might have via Zoom's Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We will take a few minutes to address questions at the end of the session. For now, I'd like to hand over to our next presenter, my colleague, Amit Jamnadas.
Hey everyone, Amit here from Ingram Micro. Thank you, Jason, for the introduction. So I'm going to talk through today, probably for the next 10 minutes, around Ingram Micro's payment solutions, and covering three key pillars. But what I am going to do first is to sort of take you through the conversations we've been having with some of our funding partners, and to share with you some of their thoughts around current market situation, and what is their appetite to fund opportunities in the IT space. So what our funders are really saying is that, hey, look, we have been around for a long time. We've been through the last GFC in 2008, and sort of almost 10 years on, 12 years on now, we're now looking at a second large crisis, obviously through a pandemic in this case. Now, what they're saying is that we're here to support you during tough times, and which is quite encouraging for an organization like us, because that means that we can take that messaging, or we can take some of the solutions that they've built in conjunction with us to market and to support our channel base. So first up, they're saying there's plenty of cash around, right? And cash is king, but credit ratings also become very important. The impact of COVID-19 on a lot of businesses has left them vulnerable. Now, the second bit that they talk about is interest rates. So whilst the interest rates have come down, and whilst the Reserve Bank in New Zealand and others around the world are continuing down a spiral towards zero, or perhaps even negative rate in future, business risks associated with the way the market is now have increased. So there is that balance that needs to be struck. Thirdly, the appetite for asset financing is preferred over software financing. But having said that, in the last sort of 4 weeks, we've seen a lot more software financing deals go through compared to in proportion to the hardware sales. My message, though, is let's be creative with the way in which we can structure payments, and engage with us, or engage with your Ingram Micro contact, because the sooner we can talk about how we can structure a payment solution for you or your end customer, the quicker we can get to providing a solution and market which will enable those businesses to continue operating, allow their staff to work from home, and so forth. What are the key messages that our reseller partners are saying? Now, I know that there's a lot of reseller partners and vendor partners on this session now. The key ones, after we did a survey across the market, both here and in Australia, was the critical need to conserve cash and to look at new funding sources, right? So you've got your bank and you've got your traditional lending sources, and those for a lot of organizations are pretty tight. You're pretty much at what they're saying is that they're at a max of what they could possibly borrow. And so finding a new source of funding is critical. The business is also looking to create as much buffer as possible from the time that they place an order to the time they've actually got to pay. And everyone is looking at ways in reducing costs, preserving cash, and also managing credit limits, because that's also become quite critical. Is, if I've got a credit limit of $500,000, is that constraint how much business I can do with Ingram Micro. So we've got some solutions around how we can assist with credit limits as well. So what can you expect from Ingram Micro's flexible payment solutions? And I'm going to quote Jason Langley here, and I'm going to read this out because it's quite a powerful statement that he makes here. So the goal of our program is to enable resellers and their end customers with flexibility to update technology whilst maintaining cash and liquidity. And how are we going to be assisting you in doing that, right? So we've got three key pillars. The first one's around payment deferrals. The second one is around cash recovery on existing assets. And this is quite an interesting one. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people know this as a sale and leaseback model. And it's more important now than ever because a lot of organizations in New Zealand have gone and purchased and used capital to buy a lot of equipment. And that was probably over the last 12 months. And now they're probably looking at, whoa, shit, we've invested a whole heap of money. How do we get some of this money back? How do we free this cash up? So we'll take you through some examples around that. The third one is around managing credit limits and how can different funding structures assist and alleviate the credit limits that you've got or preserve this credit limit so you can continue to do business. We'll start with the first one, and that's around flexibility and payment deferral. So a lot of you may have even done shopping through multi-retailers and so forth, where you've got deferred payments of up to 6 months, or buy now and pay nothing for until 2021. So it's taking that concept and going, hey, you can actually buy now and pay later, and as your customers' needs change, so can yours, right? And so can you in the way in which you take offers to market. This, and I'll show you on the slide that's coming up around how that works. But the key message here is allowing customers to take that equipment now and starting payment up to from 3 to 6, up to 12 months post taking that equipment and starting to utilize that solution. So here's an example on what a traditional 3-year quarterly lease payment would look like, where you'd be paying an equivalent amount over 12 quarters or a 36-month term. Now, with a deferred payment model, and the example here is I've used is $500,000. So if you're doing a straight line prior to COVID-19 and you were just doing a straight line lease, you'd be looking at about $41,000 per quarter over 12 quarters. Now, given that everyone's cash flow constraint, this option allows for a 6-month payment deferral and pushing the balance of payments out over the remaining quarters at a slightly higher value, but ultimately paying the same amount. So it gives any business, for that matter, a 6-month buffer to start building that business up, start building up their cash flow reserves, and be in a position to start paying for equipment that they purchased 6 months ago at a later date. Now, the example I've used here is one that's based on zero interest, and that's for the purpose of illustrating how the deferred payment model would work. The second one is the leaseback offering, and this one is all about injecting that capital back into the business. And how do we work that through? So we look at what equipment's been purchased over the last 12 months. We'll look at the book value of that equipment and kind of go, if you've purchased $100,000 worth of equipment 12 months ago, and the book value based on a straight line depreciation now is 60% of that, so say $60,000, we'd look at leasing that equipment back, paying that $60,000 out within a 72-hour time frame, and allowing your business to continue to use that equipment. Now, this is quite powerful because all of a sudden you've released a whole lot of cash back into the business, which can be used to buy stock, can be used to fund the operation of the organization, and also just alleviate that short-term pain that everyone's going through right now. And here's an example of how that works. So again, I've based this on $100,000. Now, if your equipment was purchased, say, in the last 3 months, then you'd almost look at what that invoice value was, and that's the amount that we'd be looking to fund. There's a question that was raised around this and whether there's an opportunity to fund software as well. So we'd look at software on a case-by-case basis, but this model works really well for organizations that have purchased a whole lot of hardware using capital over the past 12 months. The final one that I want to cover off is around credit limit management. Now, credit limits are being, is something that we work with, insurance providers in the background to ensure that we're able to offer a credit limit or a credit facility out to our end customers. Globally, insurers are reviewing credit limits and credit limit structures that they've got for organizations. We're quite fortunate that we haven't seen that happen in this market yet. But having said that, conserving your credit limit whilst also being able to trade and trade strongly is important. And one of the things we wanted to sort of share is that should a transaction be facilitated through Ingram Micro Financial Solutions, that we will work with our credit team internally and ensure that that credit limit is preserved whilst allowing you to transact through that financial model that we've got in place for that particular transaction. Now that's pretty much all I've got. I'm now going to just put into a holding slide, and I'm going to unshare my screen and hand that over to my colleague, Adam Peden. We'll be taking questions at the end. So if you've got some questions about my session, please feel free to ask at the end of the session. Over to you, Adam.
Cool. Right. Sorry, I just realised. Do the old faux pas, start talking and I'm on mute. So, gotta love these things. So guys, look, my role, General Manager of Commerce Lifecycle Services at Ingram Micro, what I thought I'd do is give you a little bit of a brief overview of what role we play within the Ingram Micro world and how we exist really. So we support channel partners, whether it be vendors directly or resellers, to maximize the value that they can extract within the entire product lifecycle. As a team, we enjoy building, having meetings with our partners and understanding what their problems are and actually building a solution out of the wide variety of service stacks that we have both locally and globally. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of what we do, but then also talk you through what we've seen over the last few months around, obviously with COVID, accelerating a few changes in our industry and what that's actually meant for us within New Zealand and what we're seeing happen here. Rather than take you through all of this, guys, the reality is we integrate ourselves into every single part of a life cycle of a product. So we want to maximize the entire value for you. So whether it be working right the way through from garnishing the demand from the retail or from your customers right the way back up to manufacturing, so you're not actually having to be sitting on obsolete stock. So we use this internally, and we also can provide this for many partners, all the way through to warehousing it, getting it up to channel in the most efficient and effective way, managing all your freight, your transport, both locally and globally, we can do that. Reverse logistics, and that's not just a matter of processing returns, it's around the advanced swaps, break fix, it's repairs on site, it's repairs, turning it around very quickly and customizing a reverse logistics journey. And then the big part for us of late is around how do we, and we're seeing a big surge in this, both, again, like I say, guys, locally and globally, that data is becoming increasingly pivotal and probably the most important piece of information, I guess. It's almost taking over the value of money now as we're moving into more of a digital world. But with that, there's also the element where people are still a little bit lapsed, and we find that a bit in New Zealand, where she'll be right mentality where it's okay, we'll pass back old computers and people's data is still attached to that. And we see this when we're doing our ITAD business where kit's coming back. So we make sure everything's securely erased and destroyed before we then resell it on to other markets, if we can extract value out of it and pass it back through into the channel, or we look to recycle and reducing the amount of waste ending up in landfill. So that's, I guess, an overview of what we do. The part that I'm really interested in talking to you guys, and it's been very interesting over this last 10 weeks, I'd say, busiest period that I've ever been part of, but it's actually the most exciting. And probably to echo something Jason alluded to earlier, is we're on the right side of the ledger, and that's not just meaning Ingram, I'm meaning the entire IT reseller network, because we've got products that are actually in demand right now. We're not travel or leisure, which is on the wrong side of the ledger, which is suffering, obviously, as we know. But what it has meant is it's forced partners to look at how do they get those products to customers quickly, efficiently, and obviously with the new guidelines being in a contactless environment. So the trends we're seeing at the moment is, one, our product set is in hot demand. You've got the working from home, you've got your consumer electronics. As Jason mentioned, the consumer spend on online was greater than what we saw over Christmas for that period. And I guess that gave people a little bit of something to do rather than sitting in your four walls of your house. And I know my wife spent a fair amount on online shopping, and I'm now having to deal with courier post trying to find out where those parcels are. So, and I hear it daily. So it's been great for us. But what we're seeing is all of these services are moved to, and the big demand is contactless digital services. So our team have been working tirelessly both here and on a global scale, how quickly we can turn what I've just showed and mentioned about here into providing the solutions that our channel partners need. And the things that have kind of kicked in and really shown to be in hot demand, and things such as pre-deployment and staging. So prior to COVID, everyone knew that Ingram Micro, we had a deployment and configuration ability in our DC. That now has been in hot demand to the point we're working 16-hour days, pumping through probably 12 times more volume than what we were doing prior to COVID. So the guys are just absolutely going crazy at the moment, but that is also coming down to the point that every single channel partner we're working with is wanting a bespoke solution. So it's not just a cookie cutter solution, it is a bespoke. So we're managing the entire project for a number of channel partners. Obviously shipping direct. So how do you get the product to the customer the most efficient, effective way? But shipping direct is no longer just shipping to Datacom office, as an example. It's now having to ship to Jimmy that works at Datacom, but to their home. How do we manage that, and how do we also assure that good has actually ended up to Jimmy in the time frame that we needed it to, and then provide that close the loop back through to Datacom and partners. So we've built all of that digital journey. The other big thing that's come out of it is alluding to the channel financing. We're seeing more and more lease requirements. We're seeing the device as a service or hardware as a service, technology as a service. I think there's so many acronyms now around as a service that we could, spend the whole conversation talking on that. But what's coming out and is starting to be needed is tracking it on an Excel spreadsheet is no longer good enough. So there's the requirement now to know where that asset is, not just within the business, but who actually owns it who's holding it within that industry, that company. So again, I use Datacom as an example, and mention Jimmy. We can actually show that this laptop serial number X is now with Jimmy. It's got a lease of X amount of time. It's within a warranty period. And if there's a fault or anything that goes on wrong with that, or a swap that occurs over that lifetime of that lease, we then replace with what the new device is, and it still sits within that period. And there's and Jimmy doesn't need to do anything. It's all digitized, it's all automated. So, but what it does is it gives that assurance back to the finance companies. It gives the assurance back to the brokers, and that this business knows exactly where that kit is. And it also gives the assurance that we can actually provide a full life cycle when that kit is becoming near the end of its term, 2-year, 3-year lease term. We also look for you, what is the right resale value. We try and look to whether we remarket it on your behalf, ensure that secure data erasure. So there's that full closed loop economy is built. The other big thing that we've actually seen, and this has been driven a lot from our vendor partners, is that contactless warranty and contactless repairs journey. So it's been very difficult before. A lot of stuff would be either through resellers, both commercial or your retailers, where customers would go back to there and hand in their product through level 4 and to a vast degree of level 3. That wasn't possible. But yet there's a whole lot of product out there that is unable to be used and is faulty. So how do we get that turned around so that the fix is back into the customer's hand and they're not without, I guess, their device to be able to make them optimize their work? So we've built a lot of contactless reverse logistics solutions around repairs, advanced swaps, break fix. So we're not leaving customers now without a device. And again, these are dictated by certain channel partners that we've partnered with. So these solutions, I guess, where I'm going with, team, is they kicked off and accelerated through the last 6 to 10 weeks. But the interesting thing is a lot of the partners we're working with now, as we're starting to come out of that level 4 and into where we are today, level 2, they want these services to stay. There's been a change in consumers where they're open to now being on a contactless digital selling. They want to be able to, they can get all the information they need online. Talking to the team up in Europe, e-commerce, our e-commerce, we had a blip, obviously. You know, everyone went into their lockdowns, whether we call it level 4 or lockdowns around the world. And there was a blip where people went, what does this mean? But as we saw, that blip didn't last long for our services side, because e-commerce just took off, because people wanted to procure goods. People still needed the technology. And it's meant that we're now had to accelerate, I guess, projects that we've been working on that would take months, now been brought to life within a few weeks. But these are now going to stay. And I guess it's just, what's the question I want to leave with everybody on here is, what are you doing to ensure that you're extracting the full value of your product through the entire life cycle for your customer? And you know, we have the ability to work with you on that, and that there is going to be the thing over the next coming months and years of how do you change into this new normality and this new world. That's where we're seeing it, and we're seeing digital as the new currency. That's it from me. I will work out how to stop sharing and pass it over to Barbara.
So I'm just going to work out how to share. Screen share. Is that the right one? No. Okay. Hopefully technology is working. Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Kidd. I'm the GM of Cloud in New Zealand, and I'm going to talk to you about how you can potentially do more cloud business fast. So I'm not going to convince you of the benefits of moving to cloud. You've just heard from the previous 3 about the fact that everybody's looking at leasing, monthly payments, reducing their capex and moving to opex. So I'm not going to go there. And also New Zealand is like the most mature country in the world with regards to cloud adoption. So what I am going to talk about is some of the learnings that we've had and some of the advice that we've given our partners with regards to how they can grow their business in the cloud space. So to do that, I'm going to go back a little bit in history to 2018 when Ingram Micro Cloud first launched our Cloud Awesomeness Roadmap. So what we did was we looked at our 45,000 resellers that are around the world, and we classified them into 4 stages to actually determine who was most mature and how you could grow that maturity going to market. So we've categorized them into 4 areas. You can see by far at 60%, build was the #1 category. This is not a great story for cloud as far as the IT channel is concerned. This is very, very manual, and this is totally reacting to the customer walking in the door or on the phone or whatever it might be, and actually asking for cloud subscriptions. So as an example, that would be customers asking for Office 365, and then potentially the reseller might be offering cloud backup, because there is no cloud backup with Office 365. And then the other one is probably most likely to be cloud security. So they're kind of doing 1 to 3 offerings, but it's more the fact that the customer is specifically asking for it. Then what we find is when the partner is starting to recommend 3 solutions and bundling that up and taking that to market, that they have a bit of an aha moment, because they're starting to have a solution conversation with their customers. And so then they start moving to the breadth stage. And there's 30% of our 45,000 resellers were sitting in that category. And so what they were doing there was kind of like, okay, I don't have to just sell cloud in my region. I can do it nationwide. So I'm going to do digital marketing. I'm going to fill my channel with cloud leads and opportunities. And then as I get more leads and more business coming in, I really need to automate this, because my back-end processes, all I'm getting is complaints from my administration back-end, and it's costing me a lot of money. So I need to automate that provisioning. And then the benefit is cross-selling. So you can actually start having really good conversations with your customers with regards to what do they want over and above just those fundamental 3 offerings that they might have come in and asked for originally. And you can start offering some really cool things around it. You can start doing vertical solutions and really start promoting a cloud solution to your customer. Once you do that, you're starting to get deeper into your customer's business and starting to understand them better and helping them define a cloud strategy. That's when you get into the depth stage as a partner, and you start having hybrid catalogs. So you're probably not just buying from one distributor, you're probably blending a whole heap of solutions, doing hybrid solutions. You've got a really good digital marketing campaign going, and you definitely are automating everything at this stage. But the one thing that really stands out as a depth partner is that you're starting to get into their infrastructure. So you're defining that strategy of where they're going in the next 3 to 5 years. Where are they taking their infrastructure? Is it a hybrid solution? Is it a cloud first solution? Whatever that might be. And that was the one big differentiator, was a depth partner is definitely a trusted advisor and also getting involved in that infrastructure decision. Scale is the very elite end, you can see it's only 1%. Everything is automated, everything is hyper, the focus is digital marketing, customers are self-serving, and you're just promoting, selling the best solution that you can out there. And as I said, it's very elite and there's only a few. So then in 2019, I think we'd gone up to about 50,000 customers at that stage. We actually went back and researched our customers to see what they were doing. And so you can see that our partners had started moving across from the build stage. And we definitely saw an increase in breadth and depth. And so I'm going to spend the next, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, just giving you a bit of a focus on those key 3 learnings. Now, obviously, there are a ton more learnings, but I haven't got time in a 10-minute presentation to go through it. So if you do want to know more, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we can give you some guidance on all of that. But what I am going to focus on is cross-sell, automation, and infrastructure as a service. So the importance of cross-sell. Now, I don't want to teach people how to do business, but it's amazing how many people there are still just selling a product through and not actually providing a solution to their customers. And the customer wants it. Like, this is lifting value to and from your customers. As you move into cloud, customers really are looking to their partner for advice. Where is the market going? Where are the trends? What is everybody else buying? What is the best solution for my business? How do I best package this up? Are there 3 customized offers for the types of people that I have in my company, whatever it might be. They really want you to provide a solution to them. Don't just sell a product through with margin on it. Wrap around some services. Become the value provider. Now, a lot of you are actually doing that, and New Zealand's really smart in that category. But there's also still a lot of traditional business where it's more just selling the product through. Help your customer define their cloud strategy. And the overall goal is that you become a trusted partner to that customer, and that you're actually improving the overall experience on both sides. And that's ultimately where you really want to get to from a cloud perspective. And that's what cloud allows you to do. So how do you have a cross-sell conversation? Well, I don't really want to talk about COVID-19, but how can we not? So who hasn't talked about collaboration? This whole session is based on collaboration, right? So whether you're using Teams or 8x8 or Zoom or whatever it might be, everybody has been forced into doing that with working from home. And so as a result of collaboration, everyone's really got into cloud security. What are we going to do? Is what I've got actually strong enough? There's all sorts of talk around the security of some of the collaboration software that's out there today. So how do we do that? How do we fix that going forward? There's all sorts of things, but there's backup. As I said, Office 365 has no backup in the cloud. So how do you do that? How do you provide a website? How do you do an e-commerce solution for your customer or for their customers? CRM solutions, tracking that customer and finding out how best to serve them and sell to them in the future. Now I'm going to move on to the importance of automation, and this is where I'm going to plug our cloud marketplace, and this is my only sales pitch. But basically our cloud marketplace, we've invested over $600 million USD into this platform. We've got more cloud developers than any other company in the whole entire world. We do not see ourselves as a cloud distributor. We see ourselves as a cloud developer. We are doing so much development. And why are we doing so much development? If you look at this slide, we're getting so much feedback from everybody about where the trends are going, what the demands are, what they need from the platform. So we are perpetually working non-stop. We've actually got now 3 shifts of engineers. So we're working 24/7 every single day, just trying to keep up with the pace. So where's that demand coming from? Well, we're live in 64 countries with different currencies, with different languages. Overall, we've got 120 cloud products, 8.7 million seats, 52,000 resellers and 330 customers, and that is just incrementally growing year on year. That's it. That's my plug. The thing is, whoever's cloud marketplace you use, these are the key things that you should be potentially looking for. So you want to be able to transact in minutes, and you want automated provisioning. Like, automation is king. And why is it king? Because you want to be scalable in your business. You want to be able to self-service account and subscription management. And what is quite cool about our cloud marketplace is we provide marketing campaigns that you can totally brand up with your logo and send out to your customer. Everything through our cloud marketplace has these tools available for you to leverage. We also have sales tools to get your actual sales reps up to speed. And we also have online advisors that will recommend cross-sell. So if you've sold Office 365 and backup and you're wondering what else to sell, you can actually go in and that will make recommendations for you. We've got lots of market news, presentations, white papers, and what's very, very cool is you can take our cloud marketplace, brand it with your logo and color scheme, and pass that on to your customers so they can self-serve. And of course, we can connect via an API integration, or if you've got some PSA software in the back end, we've got ID Sync that will connect with ConnectWise and Autotask. Last but not least, and really, really important, is infrastructure as a service. And I want to say why. Why is it important? Because your customers want it. Like, every IT manager right now has a 3 to 5 year strategy of moving something into the cloud as far as their infrastructure is concerned. Now, in New Zealand, it's typically a hybrid solution, but it could be a cloud first solution. And these are the sorts of numbers that Gartner and IDC are projecting, and it's actually just seeming to be growing even faster than that year on year. If you've missed the news, and I don't think you could have, Microsoft has actually decided to put a data center in New Zealand. Unfortunately, we don't have a time frame for that, But wow, if there was ever a time to talk about moving to the cloud, this is it. You know, you can still have your 3 to 5 year strategy, and by then the data center should be in place. But everybody that's been put on hold, not comfortable with putting their data in Australia or somewhere else in the world, this is the time to talk about it. Now, what we have found is a lot of our resellers have struggled with infrastructure as a service. AWS and Azure is definitely a lot more of a technical solution than most of our cloud offerings. And some get it, some don't. So in order to help you guys get to market as soon as possible, we've actually built a center of excellence in India that services the whole entire world. You can see down the very bottom, we are an accredited Azure MSP expert. There are less than 100 companies in the world that have that level of status. And we are the only distributor in the world that has that status. So we are here to help you. We can do a full white label service and manage your customer's environment so they think that they're calling you when they call us. Or we can just do assessment services, proof of concept services, and migration services. We are there to help you. That's the only reason that we've built this. So this is my final slide. I just really want to emphasize cross-sell, automation, and infrastructure as a service are the 3 key things that you should focus on from a cloud perspective. And I'm not even going to go into it because all distributors have the same thing. We all have 24/7 support, but I do want to tell you that we have a local team. We're here to help. Just give us a call or send us an email and we will get back to you. So that's it for me. So now I need to unshare and hand over to Danny. I'll find the unshare. Ah, there.
You, Barbara. I'll just get my screen up. Sharing okay? Rachel. Morning, everybody. My name's Danny Meadows. For those of you who don't know me, I look after the unified communications business for Ingram Micro in New Zealand. We're running a little bit behind time, so I'm just going to crack into it without any long-winded introductions. I'm going to run through a little bit about what we're seeing in the unified communications landscape as we've been through COVID-19. And when my slides work, there we go. So this is a lovely slide that we had put together last year. It was used for many presentations and it really encapsulated why, for a lot of partners, it was worth being in the unified communications and collaboration space. For the sharp-eyed of you out there, you will notice that the averages of the bottom 4 don't equal the top one. That's because the total collaboration market is taken as a whole, and it does include things like endpoints and hardware and legacy on-prem solutions. The bottom 4 bars in there are really to highlight the explosion that we've seen around teamwork apps like Microsoft Teams and Slack and the many others out there. Video as a service, obviously Zoom, 8x8 and many others are hot topics at the moment. And then you've got the more traditional unified communications as a service and contact center as a service. The average combined annual growth rate for the UCC sector for the past 5 years really has been sort of floating between 15 and 20%. That's up slightly now because of the explosion. And so this slide was great last year, and now it's completely out the window. There's, I imagine, armies of analysts racing around in the background trying to work out what COVID-19 means for the UCC space. I can't comment on global trends, but I certainly can comment on the local market and what we are seeing and what we expect to see. So after this sustained sort of 20 to 25% growth rate that we've seen, what we're anticipating now is that the likes of teamwork apps, video as a service, and UC as a service, and contact centers are going to explode even further. As one of my colleagues referred to earlier, we are certainly on the right side of the ledger in this. Communications just became the lifeline to everybody's customer for every business out there. To give you a good example, the one, and you'll hear another one in the next presentation, but 8x8 purchased a open source video platform called Jitsi from for a little company you've probably heard of called Atlassian mid last year, and they rebranded it and launched it into their stack late last year. I think it was around about December. And at that point, they felt they were doing quite well, and they had around about 100,000 legacy Jitsi users on the platform. Those are active accounts, and they added around about 60,000 users in the back end in the final quarter of last year. So combined 160 to 200,000 users as they moved into the beginning of this year. Then COVID-19 hit. I checked in with the team yesterday, and they've actually got a site online that publishes their active users. Their active users as of yesterday was 20 million plus. So if anybody wants an idea of just how explosive the growth in this space is going to be, then that's a really good example. And there are many others that I could give you, but as I said, we're running a little bit short on time. So what are the reasons for all these changes? So here's our life as we knew it. What do we know? So we used to be busy traveling and attending product launches and having coffees and swanning around and getting on with our jobs in general. And then COVID-19 hit, and this became our life. So in case anybody's not sure, the little picture on the right-hand side there is a virtual webinar, which I was fortunate enough to attend one with Jabra a couple of weeks back. And it was actually really good. I know a lot of companies have been very hesitant around these technologies, virtual product launches and bits and pieces, but it went really smoothly. It was a regional launch. I forget how many attendees there were, but it was well into the hundreds. And talking to the Jabra team afterwards, they felt that it went really well, and it was a major product launch for them. It was a new generation of their headsets coming out, which is kind of a once every 3-year event. So they were really caught on the hop by this, and they managed to pull it together really well. So all that said, so business as usual is gone. New norms are going to set in, and the fastest businesses to adapt are the ones that are going to come out strongest. Conferences, product launches, constant business travel are all out for the foreseeable. And for anybody that believes that CFOs and CIOs, are not tallying up the savings that are being made while we go through this, are probably kidding themselves. The travel and expense, you think about the major conferences, Microsoft Ignite, Cisco Live, and the various other ones, they are multi-million-dollar events. And I'm certain that as we come out of the back of this, there are going to be a lot of questions raised as to, if we can do this remotely using the technology that's available, why would we go back to spending those millions and millions of dollars on hosting these events? So, unified communications, when it's implemented correctly, enables teams to work together and businesses to interact with their customers. So if UC&C wasn't near the top of a business's priorities in January, it's absolutely going to be now. So all that said, what are a few things to consider? Ease of setup and admin. So provisioning, setup, and ease of access are critical to an effective unified comms strategy. These points will be key to not just successfully selling solutions and consulting with your customers, but also rolling them out. And a little thing that's probably going unnoticed at the moment is our world's changed as much as our customers. So gone are the truck rolls and the endless hours on site deployments. It's all about remote deployment, remote end user training sessions, remote support, all the things that the UC channel used to regard as nice to haves are now becoming absolutely critical. And the partners that are best set up, that are well adopted and down the path to a cloud unified communication strategy, are the ones that are going to reap the benefits of that investment that we put in. Something to consider around the setup and the admin, not everyone is a UC guru. Platforms and equipment have got to be easy and intuitive to use. So I was contacted around about 5 years ago in a previous role and asked what I thought, for an interview, what I thought had been the main barriers around the adoption of video communications, not video as a service back then, because ironically it didn't exist. There was a very, very simple answer, and it was a reasonably short call. The biggest barrier to adoption was ease of use. At the end of the day, I worked in that segment, and even I struggled to use the room systems. Plugging in IP addresses and trying to connect to the guys up in Singapore, or even just trying to get a multi-way call going with different countries. It was hard, and people tended to avoid it. What's changed? It's become easy. With the advent of WebRTC, which most of the platforms, the video as a service platforms, leverage now. You've got simple click to join. People can join from multiple devices. You click a link in an invite, you've got an Outlook plugin, and it just works. So that's where the market's been, and we're very, very fortunate in that the technology's progressed to the point before we actually entered what we've gone into with COVID-19. So moving on, security. Unified communications has got the power to drastically increase the efficiency of your organization and make life a lot easier for the individuals. You don't have to worry about messages getting lost between mediums or important communications getting delayed, but it's not perfect. And whether you're working with an external provider or creating your own internal solution, there's some significant security concerns that you'll need to overcome if you want to make the most of these services. There was a story for a long time that unified communications and IT were coming together, and we now generically refer to it as ICT. Gone are the days where you had a legacy phone system over here and you had your IT infrastructure over here, and one guy in the office looked after that phone system and dealt with Spark or Telecom or whoever it was back then, and then the IT infrastructure was completely separately managed by the IT manager. That's all completely merged now. What we're starting to see is the merging of security and unified communications. Some of the concerns, and I put up there Zoom bombing. I'm not unfairly maligning them. At the end of the day, 90% of the coverage that we've seen in the media about Zoom bombing, as it's been generically coined, termed now, is actually, it's mostly down to user error. It's mostly people not setting passcodes and overlooking basic things, and that's down to user education. So that will change over the time. But there are many other security concerns for cloud communications. As you move your communications into the cloud, you've got data theft breaches, data loss. I won't read through them all. Most of us on the call are IT professionals. You'll have heard these terms floated around. These are the things that you need to be considering and educating yourselves on around being aware that shifting your communication stack into the cloud is not as simple as just flicking a switch and chucking it over. It's got to be a planned out approach that takes into account security concerns. The one, ironically enough, small benefit that the older on-prem systems had, as much as they had many drawbacks, was if they were set up properly, they were very secure and robust, and they were protected from a lot of these security issues. So if you are talking to any of your customers, or if there's any end users out there in the audience, this is the thing to do your homework on around unified communications: is how secure is it, and how securely are you implementing it? Moving on, this one's quite near and dear to my heart. Customer experience. Most of us have probably heard the term out there now. What is customer experience? Definition: customer experience is the sum total of a customer's perceptions and feelings resulting from interactions with a brand's products and services. Customer experience spans the lifetime of a customer's relationships with a brand, starting before a purchase is made and continuing to active use and advancing to renewal or repeat purchase. CX is currently the most sophisticated means of understanding an organization's customers, leveraging modern and analytical techniques like journey mapping and audience segmentation, things like that. Organizations are seeking to intimately understand and optimize the base consumer experience, what their customers experience when they interact with them. So all that said, it's pretty important. What's the fastest way to good customer experience? I'm glad you asked. Here's a slide I prepared earlier. EX. Now, this is not so well known a term. It's one that's relatively new. It started becoming a little bit of a buzz probably mid to late last year. Employee experience, which is shortened to EX, is an emerging business function that's focused on tracing how employees think and feel during every single touch point of their journey through the company. How your employees feel, and by the way, your employees are the most valuable asset your business has, about your business strongly affects how they interact with your customers, which, as everybody's always known for a long time, they are the front line. But EX is seeking to delve deeper into that experience and find out if you optimize your employees' experience, how much of a positive benefit that has with your customer experience ratings. So a bit of a story, throw out a rhetorical question. Who's been on a call lately with a demotivated, overworked contact center agent? The only one on video, so I'll raise my hand. I have, and I'm sure given what's going on, with, as Adam alluded to before, with careers, everybody's overworked. We've seen this massive spike. I think I've had to talk to probably 4 or 5 contact center agents over the past couple of weeks. And if they're overworked and they're on a legacy system, you can just tell generally that they've lost the will to live. You know, they're going through 8 to 10 hour days with back-to-back calls. Little known fact about me, I went back to the UK back in about 2007 to visit family, and I stayed for a year. And I took a job in the AA contact center. And to this day, I regret it. I finished every day demotivated, tired, and just generally feeling pretty down. And at that point, there wasn't much available in the contact center space. It was an old legacy on-prem system, and you literally just felt like a battery hand. It was just call, and metrics with somebody watching over your shoulder. So all that said, so you get through this contact center agent, you're normally getting through after the inevitable, and I'm sure everybody's heard this lately, we're experiencing higher than usual call volumes lately, and that's painful. So what does that lead to? It leads to you generally being grumpy and getting onto a call with somebody who is pretty much over it. Now, there's technology out there that will enable far, far more efficient contact centers. And if the employees and the contact center agents in those contact centers are happier in their roles, then they're going to be fundamentally delivering a better face and a better service to customers. I've also been fortunate the past couple of weeks to have been on a couple of calls and live chats with other contact center agents where it's immediately apparent that that business is leveraging very, very new technology to put me in touch with the person I need to be talking to as quickly and efficiently as possible. The contrast between the calls that are happening with the traditional contact center or call center, as you know, is probably more relevant, versus these new contact centers is staggering. The way I come off those calls and the way I feel about those businesses is significantly different. A couple of shout outs, Samsung. So unfortunately last weekend my fridge died, and that was an enormous pain. I'll leave it at pain, because we didn't notice for about a day, so we lost all the food. I jumped on to the Samsung site and I needed to ask a whole bunch of questions about delivery, and you know, you get a 154 kilo fridge delivered in the middle of a lockdown, what does that look like? And the live chat function put me in touch with somebody immediately who answered all my questions, and I went straight ahead and I bought that fridge, and with a bit of luck it's arriving Monday. We'll see. But, the other one was my Fitbit. Now, I'm not proud to admit this, but I thought it was broken, and I spent about 30 minutes on the phone with their technical support, again on a live chat, which had a video feature for me to upload a video, and the guy then reviewed the video and came back with some feedback. As it turns out, we were both wrong. There was something in the app that I needed to enable that now means it works fine, which means it's a real shame that the new unit just arrived. But you know, taking away from those stories, those two businesses in particular, and many others out there, but sort of by a long shot, not all, are leveraging modern technology in contact centers to provide their staff with a far better platform to service their customers. The way I feel coming off those calls is significantly better. And even though at the point that I went on the call with the Fitbit, I assumed it was broken, I have absolutely no problem sticking with that brand, because I'm now comfortable knowing that if I have problems in the future, I will be able to get in touch with their technical support and get the problem resolved quickly and efficiently. On the flip side of that, I do remember the negative ones as well. So I'm aware we're coming down to time, so I will leave it there. There's my contact details. If anybody would like to contact me after this, or if you've got any questions at the end of the session, please feel free. And now I will hand over to James Harwood.
Thank you, Danny. And I'm just going to enable my video. Hang on a second. There we are. I'm just going to go to the slides. Here we go. Video. And share my deck. So I take it people can see that. So I'm going to jump straight in. So James Harwood is the name, Business Manager, Integrated Solutions. So we sit as a unique business within Ingram Micro that merge across every single part of the business who's presented to you so far.
James, we can't actually see the presentation yet, so do you want to?
Sorry,
know it sharing that?
Is that better? Perfect. Thank you. one button, not too many. So I'm conscious of time, and being lucky last, I'm just going to be very factual and about what we're seeing, have seen during COVID, and what we've seen post-COVID, and what we see going forward for the future. What is key to what has occurred in the last couple of months specifically is we wanted to share some very interesting facts that have evolved during the last 2 months. So just moving along to the next slide. So let's pick on Microsoft and Teams whilst we're on a Zoom platform. I'm just going to do a bridge into the Teams conversation. Global statistics, so this is about global adoption. In July 11, 2019, Teams was at about a 13+ million user level. That is user at a chat and collaboration level, meetings, callings, apps, and workflow. Where we've moved on since then is quite staggering. So in November 19, 13 million went up to 20 million. March 11, 2020, as we were gripping the start of COVID, we jumped to 32 million. 7 days later, we're up to 44 million. And the tada at the end of this is by April 30, 2020, 75 million users all collaborating through the Teams platform. They've experienced 234% growth in less than 2 months. What does that mean? 2 years of digital transformation in actually less than 2 months. So the modern workplace has had to change. It's had to react, and has now rapidly changed the way business is doing business internally as well as externally. People are now having to consider how they work with their own workforce, but the way they will do business with their customers going forward. This is pre-COVID, these stats, and I'm being very blank about this, that the changing modern workforce before COVID was seeing 80% of employees were collaborating more. 2 times more of your staff were in Teams. 72% of employees will be working remotely. I dread to think what that number will be now, and I think we'll be in the mid-90s. 56% of meetings have at least one remote attendee, and that is probably closer to the 90s now. And 15% of meeting rooms were equipped for video, and it was becoming the norm. So what do you need to consider? At Ingram, we have a solutions-based business unit that actually merges directly into Danny's presentation on how we can create an experience, particularly around the shared device. The personal device is very personal, and people have various Windows 10 devices, audio peripherals, IP phones. People have to be familiar, they have to be inclusive, but what is the most important thing, and I have to stress, going to Danny's customer experience, is quality, and our business ready, and it has to be reliable and manageable. So leading on from that, we have best in breed. This is a little bit of a product plug, but Microsoft have embraced their Teams environment and have produced a best in breed all-in-one device that can complete and deliver the perfect Teams Microsoft 365 collaboration all-in-one device. Currently in a 50.5-inch model, and there is an 85-inch model being launched this year as well. So front of room and edge of room, small huddle rooms are suitably covered. But this is just the icing on the cake. This is the best in breed. What we have done as a business is we have focused on a ratio of what kind of device is going to work in which environment. And here you'll see a fairly busy table, but we've broken it down to how people can create a Teams environment, a collaboration environment, a sharing. It is either a meet and present solution at most boardrooms, And then we have a meet and co-create. So co-create is key here. The more and more people that are now remote need to have the ability to co-create and collaborate their concepts, their ideas remotely. And in this large office, to focus room, to huddle, to small conference room, to medium conference, large conference, extra large meeting space, we at Ingram have built solutions across multiple vendors, Microsoft being one, LG, Samsung, Logitech, Yealink, Poly, all of whom we can put together a solution to enable business not only to collaborate and enable their business to run efficiently, but for them to be able to collaborate and work effectively with their customers, which at the end of the day are going to be paying their bills. So I'm going to now lead into a sum up. I've rapidly gone through my slides. Thanks for everyone for going over time. I don't take this personally, and I'm now going to hand back over to Jason Langley to close up.
All right. Thanks, James. So if I look at the Q&A, there hasn't been any questions submitted online, so I'll just go straight to wrap up. And firstly, I wanted to thank you. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for joining in today. I hope that some of the messages that we've been sharing today have resonated and given you ideas around areas of opportunity that you can explore within your own business as you service your customers better and help them reignite their businesses. Just to summarize, from a finance perspective, consider creativity around finance. There are lots of options available, as Amit had indicated. And I'd encourage you to use the contact details on the slide that's in front of you at the moment, just to reach out to our team and certainly ask any questions that you might not have wanted to ask in a public forum. From a commerce and lifecycle services perspective, config services, as Adam had mentioned, consider the cost and efficiency gains and the ability to deploy expensive staff on other projects by using our configuration services. IT asset disposition, there's money available in bringing back equipment for customers, money for the resellers, or you can pass those savings and benefits on to the customers when you're making that next sale. From a cloud point of view, to reiterate Barbara's 3 key points: cross-sell, automation, and IaaS. Also, one that I wanted to point out or re-articulate, partner-ready marketing solutions. They're available to help you accelerate your journey to the cloud and your business, your sales opportunities right now. And the last one for that was, for me, is predictability around recurring revenues. So once you've got your customers locked in, it's a really sticky business model. From a UC point of view, explosive growth that we're seeing, and I think we'll continue to see that going forward. The opportunity remains, and it will remain for a long, long time to come as we start to move towards the new normal. And then finally, Pro AV, 75 million daily users of Teams. What a staggering number. Work from home is here to stay. Collaboration will remain an important opportunity for us all, particularly as we collaborate between the workplace and the home office as we continue down that work from home path. So again, look, thank you for joining in today. Thank you for participating. I hope you found this session useful. Thanks again to Sean for setting it up and for doing so absolutely free of charge for us all. I think lots of benefit for us all to have. Thanks, Sean. Over to you.
Thank you, Jason and team. It's been a great session. We had a huge number of people signed in, and we'll be sending out the video through the Ingram Micro YouTube channel shortly. So thank you, everyone. I'll be ending the session now. Head over to the IT Reboot website if you want to check out the exhibitors. Thank you and goodbye.